Hey guys, kia ora, whakalofa lahi atu, and no mai haere mai. Welcome back to this week's podcast episode. I am so excited for you to be here. Thank you so much for being here. On this week's episode, it was kind of a reply to a question someone had asked to speak about mother-daughter relationships. And I kind of hesitated a little bit to do this because me and my mum don't talk. I don't have a relationship with my mum, and I'm also not a mum yet. And I was thinking about like how can I answer this question in a great way and kind of give some advice or just some helpful, stuff and tools and stuff like that. But I think this is going to be a letter to mums or a letter to parents. Just like a FYI, this is what I would have loved to have as a child with my mum or with my parents in general. And it's been a bit of a journey for me as well. I've talked about this in the past with the work that I've done on myself and going through it. It's been such a journey because there's one thing, when I first got my life coach, I was like, it was just this one thing, I wanted to be more confident and more expressed in all these things. And then when I worked on that, something else came up. And then when I worked on that, something else came up. And it just felt like all these things kept coming up. And I was like, fuck, this work is never going to be done because once you finish working on one thing, something else comes up. And it's like it kind of does feel like that. But in the same sense, it's like you're clearing all the stuff that you've kind of piled up. If you think of a mountain of fucking clothes that you have a problem and you just chuck it into the pile of clothes that's on that chair in your room, the one, right? And slowly you're picking up that piece of clothing and putting it in the wash or folding it or dry cleaning it or whatever, and you're slowly getting to the bottom of the pile. And I think on my journey to getting on the bottom of a pile, I realized that I had a lot of anger and resentment towards my parents. On this episode, I'll probably talk more towards my relationship with my mum because that's kind of what the question was about. But I had a lot of anger and resentment, and it came from not feeling seen and heard growing up. So I talked about in the past, at age 6 was the first time I realized I had body image issues on the playground, comparing my body to others. And I felt like as a child, I didn't have somewhere to go or, home to go to where a parent's like, how was your day? What came up for you? Because that would have been a moment where they would have realized like, oh shit, what's going on with my kid? She's a bit different. Like, what happened today? What is it? Like, I didn't have someone to talk to, right? And I think that just went throughout my childhood. It was moments where, you would have your play or, I used to do kapahaka and looking out into the crowd thinking that my parents were going to be there and them not being there, or my mum not being there specifically and then being in the fucking parking lot, late at night, like, where the fuck is my mum to pick me up? And, a teacher having to take me home, like moments like that. And I think it was my message in this podcast is to show up for your kids, when they have that kapahaka performance or they have a dance class or I don't know why I think like music recital. I feel like that's so American, but when they have something, show up for them, be in the crowd, be their number one cheerleader, be there for them when they need you in those moments, right? Show them that you care about what's going on in their lives. Sit down and have conversations with them and see them and hear them. And a lot of the days now, as I'm not a parent, but you realize how much you're on your phone, right? You're on your phone all the time, and your kid's probably showing you something, and you're like, yeah, darling, pretending that you're watching, and you're not really watching because you're on your phone. And it's just little moments like that, like just put your phone down. See and hear your child. What's going on for them? What's coming up? What's the big fucking thing, the problem in their life that's going on in this moment? Like, see them, hear them, guide them through life, teach them all the things that you wish you were taught growing up, do all those things. And that's coming from me as a child, what I would have loved from my parents. And if you're trying to level up and be a better parent, that's what I would 100% recommend. Sit down with your child and ask them, what do you want? How can I support you better? What do you need from mum? What do you need from dad? What are the things that you need? Really sitting down and having those open conversations, because, as you go through life, there's other bumps and hurdles going into puberty. Like, I would wish somebody would have sat down with me and talked about periods and stuff like that, because I didn't know shit. And I was shameful about it for a very long time. And I didn't have pads. I was rolling up toilet paper because I didn't know who to talk to, and it wasn't until I learned over time, like, oh, you're supposed to put a pad. Like, this is a cycle. This is a period, talking about sex, having those uncomfortable, and I say uncomfortable conversations with your kids. I would have loved to have that growing up, and speaking about that. I think just the open communication, the allowing one to be themselves. I feel like growing up, I've spoken about this in the past, I was always called so extra, too much, too loud, bossy, all these things. And it's like, embrace that from your child. Like, allow them to show up however the fuck that they want to show up, because if you dim their light and you continue to dim their light, they're probably going to pull away from you. And then in fucking 10 years time, they're going to open up a brand called So Extra. You know what I mean? And I say all of this as well to say that everything that happened, I don't wish, although this is like an open letter to parents, or to open letter, I don't know, whatever, to mums and stuff. It's also, I don't wish my childhood was any other way. I love the way that I grew up. I love that I wasn't seen and heard. I love that I had body image issues. I love that I was told I was so extra and too much, because now it's created who I am today. That's my purpose and my passion today, is to help people be seen and heard. That's the number one thing I get from my clients. I finally feel seen and heard. I finally feel a safe space to unload, and I wouldn't be on this mission to help women love what they see in the mirror and know they're worthy, be confident in their bodies, if that shit didn't happen in my childhood, right? I wouldn't have started So Extra, the sunglasses brand, if I wasn't told I was too much and so extra growing up, right? So I love that all these things happened. But I'm just like, if you're asking mother to daughter, this would be the advice I would give. Let your daughter be who the fuck that they want to be. Show up for them, support them, allow them to go on their kind of journey of their life, and you be there to support them and to guide them, to allow them to have a voice. I was growing up in a be seen and not heard. Who are you to talk? I'm older than you, so I'm the boss, kind of that hierarchy. It's like, no, be on that same level, be on the, open communication, allow them to speak and talk back and tell you what they need and ask questions and to question you. One thing that comes up a lot, is, people like, oh, well, but you might tell your kid something, this is what we do and this is what's happening. Oh, mum, but why? Because I'm the mum. It's like, what? Because you're the mum? Do you even know why you're doing that? Like, what's the reason you're telling them not to do that, right? So tell them, oh, baby, it's actually because you can't touch that because it's hot, because it's going to burn you. Maybe they have to burn themselves to learn, right? But it's, that guidance, instead of just because I'm the mum, because I said so, because I tell them why they shouldn't do that thing or why you recommend not to. Share your stories with them. And also, don't hide shit from your kids, because they know. And a lot of the times kids are so, I want to say, like, their ego is huge, but I don't know if that's a good way of saying it. It's like they think everything's because of them. Mum and dad's fighting. Oh, it's because of me. It's because I did this X, Y, and Z. Probably got nothing to do with them, but the world revolves around them, right? So it's like, oh, mum just, they're going to think the worst. And that's one thing I did growing up when I had my body image issues, because I had nobody to talk to. I made up my own meanings of what it meant to be big. I was programmed and conditioned by the things that were around me, by TV, by magazines, by people at school saying, if you're fat, bullying you for being fat, all those things. When you're eating food and somebody comments on it, oh no, So I made up my own meanings as to why fat was bad and I shouldn't be fat and I should lose weight and go on all these diets and all this kind of thing, right? So it's like, instead, I wish I had somebody come to me, baby, you're not fat. Or even if you are, it's okay to be fat. It's all right. You're beautiful. You're this and that. Fat isn't a bad thing. It's your worthiness isn't on your weight. It's actually good to be unique and to be different and to stand out and to not look like everybody else. And that's the way your body is. And I want you to love it as is, because it doesn't matter what you look on like on the outside. It's what matters is what's on the inside. What matters is your heart and your purity and being genuine. Purity, I don't know about, yeah, but being a genuine person, being kind, being loving. It's not all about looks and being, yeah, all those kinds of things. That's what I would have wished that I had growing up. But in saying that, I love the way that my life has ended up, and it's the reason why I'm here today. And I also wanted to say that I love my mom. I love my parents. There's no anger or negativity around that. They did the best that they could with what they had at that moment, right? And if you're struggling with relationships or dynamics with your parents, and same thing, maybe there's some things from, childhood that you're like, why the fuck did you do that? Or all these things. I encourage you to try and step into their shoes. Why are they the way that they are? Why weren't they able to show up for you? Because they were going through their own things. Because they had a really traumatic childhood that they didn't work through, or whatever. Try and step into their shoes and where they came from and how their parents were. And they probably weren't modeled. They probably weren't guided. So they didn't know any better. And they did the best. Like, from looking back at where they came from, they did fucking amazing. And you were fed and you were sheltered and clothed and all that. They didn't have that. But it's just like, it's also like your feelings are valid as well. Like, as much as it's to step into empathy and compassion for them, also, you're so valid in your feelings and the way that you felt as well. And that's also okay. But if you've got that, and I had resentment and anger and guilt for a very long time, not guilt. I had resentment and anger for a very long time. And I was like, fuck, time to forgive. My parents did the best that they can. I love them. I want peace in my heart. I don't want to walk with anger, but it's also my story. That's what my childhood was like. So please be there for your kids if you can, if you have the capacity to, and work on yourself, heal yourself. Don't pass down that generational trauma, all the things that you hated in childhood. Why would you pass that down to your kids? If you were hit growing up, why would you hit your kids? Why would you pass that down? You knew that you hated that shit. Think about all the things that you were programmed and conditioned through your life. Do I actually believe in that? Or am I just passing it down to my kids because that's the way that it is, right? Question all that shit. Decide what life you want to live and what life you want for your kids, and pass that down as well. But I did go onto Instagram and I asked the peoples to share what they loved about their mums and what they wish that their mums did differently. So thank you so much if you replied to this as well. But one beautiful lady said, I wish I had paid more attention when my mum taught me sewing. Being able to share girl talk with my mum. I'm lucky to have everything from my mum. My favorite is when she would braid my hair. That was our time together. Her bold and loud personality, compassion. I got role modeled acts of service. Awesome. Pro, she was a good cook and could turn the smallest meals to big and be able to feed everyone. My mum was very much like that as well. Wish my mum prioritized me and my siblings growing up. I feel you in that, sister. What I love about my mum is that I know she'll 100% back me. Love that for you. And this is also from my dad. I wish I was brought up speaking my native tongue. Nice. So all those things, if you feel like you would have wished for something growing up, give that to your children. Give that to, if even if you don't have children, just the kids around you, the next generation, your nieces and nephews, your cousins, just kids in the fucking playground. Model that, be the wish that you change, be the change that you wish to see, right? Be all those things. And if there's something that you loved, pass that on. Pass all the fucking good shit that your mum taught you and all the things. And one moment I always hold dear to my heart is the moment where I I I had a relationship in high school, me and my boyfriend, and we broke up, and it was my first ever feeling of heartbreak, and I cried, and it felt like the end of my life. Honestly, like I was so, I was gonna say dramatic at that age, but I feel like those feelings are very valid when you're going through heartbreak, and if your kid's going through heartbreak, feel for them. Don't tell them that anything that they're doing is silly or that their feelings are silly. Like, validate their feelings and emotions. Like, I see you, I feel you, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel heartbreak. Anyways, I felt heartbreak and I was fucking emotional as fuck and I didn't know what to do. And I felt so like in a lot of chaos and I had really bad thoughts about what I was going to do. And I remember crying in my room and I messaged my mum and I was like, Mom, I don't know what to do. Like, I need help. And she came in my room and she just let me cry in her arms. And she was like, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. She held me and she was there for me. And that's one moment that I hold close to my heart. Although me and my mum don't talk, and I talk about all the things growing up that I wish I had differently, and I felt like I wasn't seen and heard. And I've talked about feeling like she's put everything else before me and my siblings and stuff. I think at the same point, she was doing the best that she can. And that's a moment I think about a lot. Like, fuck, I'm so lucky that I had her there for me in that one of the hardest moments of my life, heartbreak as a teenager. She was really there for me. Actually, there's a few moments where she was there for me and, she was there in the right time and moments and stuff like that. So, be there for your kids, show up for your kids, do what you can for your kids. And I think as well, I say this all in kind of like a loving letter. If you want to level up and be better for your kids, this is what I would recommend. But also coming from a daughter, but also like I'm not a mum. I don't know. And I know I'm going to fucking traumatize my kids unintentionally. We can't all be perfect. And there's probably some trauma that I'll pass down or something like that. I know, I'm aware of that and we all have it, right? There's all something, but I'm going to do the best that I can. And that's all I can do. That's the bit. I'm going to do my best and that's all we can do. And when we know better, we should do better, or yeah, it's that we have to do better, right? But I think that's the podcast. It was just, I just really just wanted to see what came up from the question that was given around that mother-daughter relationship, and this is what came. If you love it, please let me know. Please give me some feedback. I would love to hear it. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Ka kite, koe kia.